Below is scene 1 expanded to about 1,000 words, no headings, no breaks, just a smooth narrative as you requested. Dash dash dash. Snow drifted down in long, patient spirals that looked almost deliberate, as if the sky itself wanted to soften the world for one night. The Christmas market glowed beneath strands of warm golden lights draped from stall to stall, turning the entire square into a living snow globe. Laughter rose like tiny bursts of warmth, mixing with the scent of roasted chestnuts, cinnamon sugar, and pine wreaths hung with red bows. Families passed by carrying paper cups of hot cocoa, steam curling like threads of magic around their faces. Ethan walked slowly through the crowd, one gloved hand wrapped around his daughter Lily's much smaller one. She bounced lightly beside him, her boots leaving crisp prints in the fresh snow while her knitted red hat, a gift from her mother last year, tilted slightly over her brow. Ethan reached down to straighten it without thinking, the gesture so familiar it nearly made his chest ache. This was their first Christmas without her, and everything felt like a quiet echo of a life that used to be. He was trying so hard to keep the season bright, but grief had a way of settling into the bones, even on a night like this. "Daddy, look at the lights," Lily chirped, tugging on his sleeve as they passed a stall where hundreds of tiny glass ornaments caught the glow like fragments of stars. "They're beautiful," he said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. But Lily's excitement was real and bright, and he held onto it like a lifeline. They weaved between families shopping for stocking stuffers and little handmade toys. A folk band strummed a soft tune nearby, their voices rising above the chatter. Children ran toward the carousel at the center of the market, its painted horses circling with jingling harnesses and bright mirrored trim. The world looked warm, full, alive, but Lily suddenly slowed. Her small hand stopped bouncing in his. When Ethan glanced down, he saw her staring toward the far edge of the square. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice soft enough that the snow almost swallowed it. "What is it, sweetheart?" he asked, following her gaze. There, sitting alone on a wooden bench dusted with white, was a woman wrapped in a faded navy coat. She was large, obese, with soft curves pressed tightly into her winter clothes, not because she was warm or well-fed, but because life had worn her into a shape she no longer defended. Her ankles were swollen above her boots, her knees pressed together as if she were trying to make herself smaller despite her size. A plastic grocery bag rested beside her feet, containing only a few cheap cans and a loaf of bread. She clutched her coat around her midsection, as though bracing against a cold far deeper than the weather. What caught Ethan wasn't her size. It wasn't even the worn-out coat or the way her hands trembled slightly where they gripped the bench. It was her eyes. They were turned toward the families, each laughing, linking arms, sipping cocoa, but she wasn't really watching them. She was remembering something. Or missing something. Maybe both. It was a look he recognized in the mirror more often than he cared to admit. "Daddy, she looks sad," Lily whispered. Ethan nodded softly, his heart squeezing. "Some people have a harder Christmas than others, honey." But Lily didn't look away. She stood very still, her little mitten pressed around his fingers. Children had an honesty about their empathy, simple, instinctive, impossible to turn off. The woman shifted slightly and tried to stand. Ethan watched her brace her hands on the bench, her joints stiff from cold and weight. Her breath came out in small, strained grunts as she tried to rise. She managed, but slowly, painfully, leaning heavily on a nearby railing for support. A group of teenagers walking past glanced at her and snickered under their breath. Not loudly, not cruelly enough to draw attention, but enough for the woman to hear. Enough for her shoulders to fold inward. "That's mean," Lily said immediately, frowning. "Yes," Ethan murmured, jaw tightening. "It is." The woman finally straightened, though her back remained slightly hunched from exhaustion or habit. She bent for her grocery bag, lifting it with effort, and began to shuffle toward the edge of the square. Her steps were slow and measured, as if each one caused her discomfort. And all around her, the glow of the market seemed to fade the farther she walked, leaving her swallowed by cold blue lamplight rather than warm Christmas gold. Ethan watched her go, a heaviness pressing against his ribs. He wondered if she had someone waiting at home. But her hunched posture, the meager groceries, the way she avoided eye contact with anyone, he doubted it. "Daddy," Lily said again. "Yes, sweetheart. Does she have a family?" Ethan hesitated. "I don't know." Lily's voice dropped even quieter. "She looks like she doesn't." Ethan exhaled slowly, not trusting himself to speak. The woman paused for a second at the edge of the market, adjusting her grip on the grocery bag. The snow was falling more steadily now, gathering on her shoulders like a second, colder coat. She didn't brush it off. She just kept walking, her breath fogging in long, solitary clouds. Lily squeezed his hand. Daddy. He looked down, forcing his thoughts away from the ache in his chest. Yes. Her eyes met his, big, brown, and filled with a tenderness that reminded him so sharply of her mother he almost staggered. Daddy, can we bring her home for Christmas? Ethan froze. Not outwardly, but inside, something broke open. The question wasn't childish or impulsive. It came from a place of compassion so deep it frightened him. A place he knew his wife had nurtured in their daughter long before she passed. Sweetheart, he began, unsure what to say. Before he could find words, Lily spoke again, her voice fragile with sincerity. No one should be alone on Christmas. Mommy always said that. Ethan closed his eyes for a heartbeat. Snow gathered on his eyelashes. The sounds of the market seemed distant, muffled, hollow compared to the warmth in his daughter's voice. He looked once more toward the lonely figure disappearing into the dimmer street, her heavy silhouette softening under falling snow. And in that moment, something shifted inside him, quiet but powerful. Maybe it was memory. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was love learning to move again. But he felt it. And he knew Lily was right. If you want scene 2 expanded to 1000 words too, or image prompts, just tell me. Here is scene 2 expanded to about 1000 words, with no headings, just a continuous narrative. Ethan stood in the snow for a long second, watching the lonely woman disappear into the dimmer street beyond the Christmas lights. Something in him pulled forward, an instinct, a memory, a promise he once made to his wife about raising Lily with the same open-hearted kindness she had lived by. He squeezed Lily's hand gently. Let's go talk to her, he said, his voice low but certain. Lily didn't hesitate. She nodded firmly, her puffy red coat bouncing as they started after the woman. They walked quickly through the thinning crowd, the festive sounds behind them fading with each step. The warm glow of the market receded, leaving a quieter stretch of road lit by a few tired street lamps. The snow here lay undisturbed, soft and unbroken, except for the woman's deep footprints. She moved slowly, her breath heavy and visible, her grocery bag dragging slightly in the snow with a faint scraping sound. Ma'am, Ethan called gently once they were close enough. The woman jerked a little, startled. She turned, her eyes wide behind fringe of damp hair. For a moment, fear flickered across her face, the kind born from being mocked too many times, from being approached too often only to be treated cruelly. She clutched the grocery bag tighter to her chest as if expecting something unpleasant. I'm sorry, she stammered. Did I get in your way? Did I drop something? Her voice was soft, strained, and edged with years of apologizing for simply existing. No, Ethan said immediately, keeping his tone warm. Nothing like that. My daughter just wanted to talk to you. The woman blinked, stunned by the unexpected kindness. Her gaze flicked to Lily, who stood a little ahead of Ethan, mittened hands clasped earnestly in front of her. Hi, Lily said, her voice shy but bright. I'm Lily. The woman swallowed. Hello, Lily. You looked lonely, Lily said plainly. Are you going home for Christmas? The woman's lips parted, and her eyes dropped to the snow at her feet. For a moment, she didn't speak. When she finally did, her voice cracked softly. No, darling, I'll be alone. It's just me now. There was a quiet honesty in the words, the kind that came from saying them too often in your own head and too rarely out loud. Lily frowned deeply, as though she were trying to understand why a person should ever be alone on a night meant for warmth. That's not fair, she murmured. The woman gave a fragile smile, one that didn't quite lift the sadness in her face. Life isn't always fair, sweetheart. Lily turned toward Ethan, tugging his sleeve. Daddy, this is the lady. Ethan met his daughter's eyes and understood exactly what she meant. She wasn't telling him something, she was reminding him. Reminding him of the question she had asked, the hope she carried, the kindness her mother had taught her to see in people who needed it most. He stepped closer to the woman. Would you mind if I shared something with you? He asked gently. She hesitated, clearly unsure whether she should walk away or brace herself. I suppose, she said softly. My daughter asked me a question just now, Ethan said. And, I think you should hear it too. The woman's breath hitched, fear and disbelief mixing in her expression. Oh, Lily stepped forward until she stood right in front of the woman. Then she reached up and took one of the woman's hands between both of her small mittens. The woman gasped a little at the warmth, maybe from Lily's hands, or maybe from the gesture itself. Lily looked up at her with a tenderness that could soften stone. Daddy, she said, her voice pure and steady, can we bring her home for Christmas? The woman whimpered, an involuntary sound, raw and broken. Tears surfaced in her eyes instantly, as if the question reached some hidden place inside her that had gone untouched for years. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, voice trembling, "you don't even know me." "But you looked like you needed someone," Lily answered simply. That was all. That was enough. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling his wife's presence in the moment like a warm breeze against his frozen heart. He stepped beside Lily and addressed the woman directly. "If you're comfortable," he said softly, "we would love for you to join us. Just for dinner. No expectations. No pressure. Just warmth. Company. A place to be." The woman's eyes went wide. Her hand went to her chest as if trying to steady her heartbeat. I haven't been invited anywhere in years," she whispered. I don't even remember the last time someone wanted me." Ethan shook his head gently. "We want you." The words seemed to break her. A tear escaped down her cheek, leaving a clear trail through the snowflakes that had settled there. She took a shuddering breath. "My name is Margaret," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Lily encouraged with all the openness of a child. "We have extra cookies." A watery laugh slipped from Margaret's mouth, soft, shaky, but real. "Cookies," she repeated, almost in disbelief. "They're Christmas ones," Lily added proudly. Margaret pressed her hand to her lips, trying to keep her emotions from spilling over. I would be honored," she finally managed. Ethan smiled, a genuine one that felt strange after so many heavy months. "Then let's walk together," he said. Margaret nodded slowly, still clutching her grocery bag but holding it with far less tension now. Lily slipped her mittened hand into Margaret's free one, and the woman froze for a second, stunned by the simple affection. Then, very gently, she closed her fingers around Lily's tiny hand. The three of them began walking back toward the market lights. As they crossed from the dim cold back into the warm glow of the festivities, something changed. Margaret's shoulders loosened, drawing away from the tight hunch they had worn for so long. Her steps grew lighter, though still slow, and for the first time in perhaps years, she looked around, not at the people to compare herself, not at the ground to disappear, but at the lights. At the beauty. At the possibility. Ethan watched her from the corner of his eye, feeling something inside him ease. He realized then that inviting Margaret wasn't just kindness, it was healing. For her. For him. For Lily. For the memory of the woman they all missed. As they left the market and headed toward home, the snow continued falling softly, as though the world knew it was witnessing something fragile and sacred. Something that had begun with a child seeing a stranger no one else saw. And for the first time that night, Ethan felt the warmth of Christmas settle into his chest. Because sometimes, miracles didn't arrive in grand, sparkling displays. Sometimes, they came in the form of a lonely widow being offered a hand. Sometimes, they came wearing mittens. If you want image prompts for each scene, a part 3, or a different ending, just tell me.